Hello to the chicos, hello to the chicas. In today's video we are going to discuss a positional concept, and that concept is going to be the weakness of a color complex. Now this is an idea that you hear very often chess players referring to the weakness of a color complex rather than just a particular square, and sometimes people are a little bit confused about what it entails, how it occurs on the board. So I thought I'm going to start with actually showing you the example, and then we are going to reverse engineer the whole shebang. So behind the black pieces I was playing this game, and here the dark colored complex is chronically weak in the white camp. And I highlighted a lot of squares. Some of them are more relevant than others, but it's crystal clear to see that we are definitely not talking here one weak square, the d4 square or the e5 square or the f4 square. And the reason for that is because all of these squares are chronically weak, and black's strategy is to penetrate along these dark squares and try to wreak havoc in the white camp. Now, one very important question is that how do these positions occur when there is an entire complex weak, and how can we identify such situations? And for that, my hints are the following. The one and most obvious one, the first one, is the pawn structure. The way how the white pawns are laid out, all of them on white, by default create dark squared weaknesses. There are lots of gaps in between them. Imagine if this pawn was back on g3 and this pawn was back on e3, we would have hardly any weak squares in white's camp. But because of the f pawn is gone and the pawns were pushed forward, all of these dark squares are really tender. And second, and this is a very important addition to this story, there is no dark squared bishop available for white to try to neutralize at least some of these squares. Imagine if this white bishop was on e3, right? All of a sudden the d4 square would not be accessible, f4 non-accessible, f2 non-accessible. As is, white has an overgrown pawn on f1, which is basically called a bishop, but it's not really functioning as one because it's shooting at the back of their own pawns. And so there is not a lot of joy to be had in white's position, and indeed from here on out the game actually was pretty much a carnage city, which of course I'm going to show you, but I think it's far more exciting to now have a look at the entire game and see how you get from starting position to here. So the game started off as a closed Sicilian, and I really am not going to spend too much time on discussing theory and all of that. Much rather I'm going to talk strategy. So we jump into d4. It is to prevent d4. It is to prevent bishop h6, at least delaying it, because of course after take now c2 is hanging. And now we are going to launch a queenside play with b4, a5, a4, try to gain space on the queen side and try to provoke some weaknesses or create some weaknesses. c3 played. Now that is a positive because it kicks out the knight, but this is also a negative because now I have a hook. I can latch onto this c3 pawn by playing b4, and indeed after f4 bc my opponent here opted to take back with the knight. Now this was a big shock to me. I anticipated bc3 only. Having said that, even here after queen a5, now I have a target and I have got an open b5 to work with, and I can have a secondary target on d3 as well. I much prefer black's position. It's easier to play, it's more fluid. I have accomplished already severe weaknesses in white's camp. White in turn hasn't even kicked off with the attack that the closed Sicilian is meant to be all about. So opponent played knight c3, I played bishop a6, homing in on the backward d pawn and gluing the queen to it. g4, queen a5, hitting c3, potentially hitting b2, and then hitting c3. I'm just completing development. I'm playing basically the type of chess that should not need any justification. Like until now, I haven't really played a single move that required particular explanation. I completed development. Admittedly, this was a bit early, this b5, b4 play, compared to what many would expect. Like, that happened before developing some pieces, but the overall image is that logical chess is being played. Rook c1. And here I already had a vision of what I wanted to accomplish in this game, and that was a planting of a bishop on d4 and the trade of the dark squared bishops. And having seen what I showed you already in the intro, you go like, yeah, fair enough. But when you are in this position, I think a lot of players, especially in the lower rating ranges, would not even consider the idea of bishop d4, because in their head, this is their good bishop, and they don't want to trade off the defender of the king. Right? Whereas the reality is that whilst this is not a bad bishop per se, it is actually very difficult to determine which one is good out of the two bishops, because black's pawn structure is fluid, right? And so the only measuring stick you have when it comes to what is a good bishop and what is a bad bishop is the number of pawns that are fixed on the color of that particular bishop, right? Now, I have a fair number of pawns on the color of this bishop, but none of them are fixed. And so I can't call good or bad. However, it is becoming more and more obvious that in the white camp, this guy is likely going to end up being a bad bishop behind these pawns. And so, consequently, trading that bishop looks like a good idea. Now, I didn't want to go in just yet. I was a bit hesitant to commit to that. I wanted to play queen b4 and then bishop d4. But queen b4 I thought might attract knight d5. So I played e6 first. Opponent played f5. And now you see crystal clearly what I was talking about in relation to bishop and pawns. And you can argue that none of these are fixed either. But that's actually not true. These two cannot move already, and although these two are not fixed either, but it's very unlikely that they are going to be in a rush to go anyway. Anyway, bishop d4, immediately best move. And once again, I do think that if I had shown you this game without showing you the almost final position, this move would have come as a shock to many. And I'm very, very happy that I found it, and also happy that it turned out to be the best move. Once again, the idea is purely to infiltrate on the dark squares and exploit the weaknesses in the white camp. Fe was played. I thought that this was another mistake, because what this does is that it opens up the f-file, which is an avenue where white has nothing on me. But it also eliminates the possibility of playing f6 and potentially sneak a queen in for a mate threat. So basically white releases heat tension without benefiting. The only way to justify fe is if you can immediately put pressure on the e6 pawn, provoke e5, and then utilize the weak d5 square. None of that is happening here. They traded a pair of rooks, and then they played king h1. I think this was the point when they realized that rook f1, as they might have intended, would fall for takes. Queen takes is not doable because the bishop is hanging. Bishop takes, and after knight e5, once again, the dark color complex is really, really vulnerable. The bishop trade is incoming. If they take, they drop d3. Yeah, because everything is hanging. If they don't trade, well, what do they do? Like, queen f2 is a move, I suppose, but that gives up d3, so this is already game over. So my opponent played king f1, h1 rather, excuse me, and now we are going to approach the game position. I took the bishop, of course. I played queen b4 with a tempo, and now I'm en route to d4, b3, knight e5 tempo, and as you can see, the penetration of the dark squares and the dark squared strategy, which is what you call your plan when you want to exploit a weak color complex. So it was a weak dark squared color complex. So I had a dark squared strategy, which started off with this move and took its final and glorious form with this position, or I should perhaps rather say with this position. And that is a picture perfect demonstration of what it means to identify weak squares and then weak color complex, and then associate a strategy to it and then carry it out reasonably well. As you will see, I didn't actually carry it out to perfection or anything close to that. It was reasonably well done. The final tactic was very nice. If you want to pause the video here to find the winning move here, that could be a good puzzle for you. So I'm going to now show you the final move. So once again, if you want to solve it, please pause the video. It was rook h2, check, forcing the king to take, and then knight f3 picked off the queen, and that was the end of the story. Now, before I put the icing on the cake and I show you the most incredible move of the game, which I didn't see at all, I would like to ask you to please don't forget to chuck a like on this video if you actually liked it. Please leave a comment down below. It's very important that we keep that algorithm keep rolling. Please subscribe if you haven't done so, and you can also super thank me if you wish to do so. So when I finished this game, I fed it to the game review function of .com, and I found out a detail that really was one of the coolest moves I've seen in a long time. I wanted to say that it shocked me, but it didn't. What shocked me was how effective that move was compared to what I thought it would be. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. So, more or less well played until here. And in this position, g5 wasn't exactly, queen, the Freudian slip. Queen a5 wasn't really the best. And instead here, the engine already recommends the crazy, absolutely bonkers g5 move. With a much better evaluation for black. It's more than -1. The idea of the move is to provoke a move by the f-pawn to actually further enhance or accentuate, or I don't know what the right word is here, compound the weakness of the dark squares, and then play a casual e6, emphasize, let's go with emphasize. And then I'm simply going to play the same stuff, bishop d4, knight e5, and yeah, just a positional pawn sack of the highest order. I believe that it was going to work after they played queen a5, I think they played okay c1, and here too, g5 takes and e6. And this is the best way to play for black. It just feels so counterintuitive at first, but the more you look at it, the more you realize that the extra g5 pawn is neither here nor there when it comes to attacking my king. There is no way to get close to my king. And according to the engine, the best line looks like rook cd1, bishop d4, rook d2, knight e5. And once again, you see the same theme over and over and over again. Black invading white on the dark color complex and exploiting it to the max. Now, what I really want you to observe here, because this is super cool. Check this out. Black to move, yeah? Dark square. Dark square. Dark square. And dark square. That's how you know you are doing something well when it comes to positional chess, and when you have a plan to exploit a certain color complex and every single move you play is taking place on that color. It's so impressive and so much joy to watch. The idea is simple. After take, rook, well, that would be nice. Rook b2. We are penetrating, and the white defense is falling apart. d3 is really weak. Queen d6 is not capturable because c3 is loose. Yeah, it is very much engine chess, but trust me when I tell you, it is the best way to play this position for black. That being said, bishop takes e3, queen e3, and then rook b8 is also good. Even taking on d3 is a move here, but it sort of contradicts the idealistic view of how we should play a color complex. So yeah, it was a very enjoyable game to play. I still learned a very cool motif out of it, or rather I was reminded the existence of a motif that I already knew it existed, but I didn't even think about it in the game, partly because I didn't think it was necessary. But anyway, I hope that this video was a cool one for you to engage with the concept of weak color complex and how to exploit it. And I will leave it at that. Please, once again, do all those things that I encourage you to do, and I'm going to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.